You're listening to the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, and this is episode number 63. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast. I am so excited to be recording from my brand new studio, and it is a major improvement over the last studio that I was working from. Much quieter, much more serene, much easier to record higher quality video and podcasts. So very much looking forward to bringing you lots of new content from this new location. And hopefully the sound will be much better for everyone out there as well. So with that, let's get into today's topic. And today's topic is how to create action plans that deliver. How to create action plans that deliver. Now, a lot of us have heard of action plans, right? Probably we've taken a course or we've sat down with a mentor or a coach, and they said, okay, if you want to have results, if you want to see results, you need to plan things out. If you want to plan things out, you have to kind of put things in a list and understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and put it out on paper, and that way it'll be clear in your mind. Now, there is some truth to that. There is also a bit of fogginess behind this approach. And what I'd like to kind of discuss today is the difference between an active and a passive action plan, or active and passion action steps. Now, when we're putting together a plan and we're not clear on exactly what we need to do to reach our goal, for example, let's say we have a goal to start a new podcast. Let's just say that's the goal. And we've never done it before. We've never done a podcast before. So it could be tempting to have a action step entitled something like research about how to start a podcast. And I mean, that sounds fine, right? You don't understand how to do a podcast. Let's start researching about it. So on the surface, it does sound like a nice action step, but it is a very vague action step. And the reason is because it's a passive form of action. When you start using words like research or look into or get a better understanding of things like that, you are think about, that's another one. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to look into it. So when you start thinking this way and writing out an action plan with words like this, there's no concrete step that you are planning to accomplish and that you can check off when the step is complete. So when you say, I'm going to look into how to starting a podcast, I'm going to research about a podcast, how to start my own podcast. Granted, research needs to happen, but let's think about, how do you know when you're done with your research, right? It's not really clear. You could research for days, right? And what makes this a little bit more kind of, fuzzy is that you could say you completed your research and you completed your step for that particular step in your action plan. So you could tell yourself, well, I did some research today. That's what I said I was going to do. Great job. And are you really done? Who's to say, right? I mean, when do you finish researching? You can research forever. So the point is, you need to decide what the actual action step is and use powerful words and use kind of anchoring vocabulary in order to make sure that it's clear to you and clear to anyone else who might be trying to hold you accountable for what you're doing, what it is that you are going to accomplish by the end of that step. So in order to do that, it's important that we include 4 things. We need to include what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, why we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it. What we're going to do, why we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it. If you have these 4 pieces of information in your action step, the action step is going to become a lot clearer. And it's also going to make it very obvious whether or not you've completed it or not. So let's go back to creating a podcast. So we had taken the approach, hypothetically, that we were going to do some research into how to creating a podcast as our first step. So what could we say instead of that? Let's say we understand that in order to create a podcast, we need a microphone. We need a microphone. So I want to know what is a good microphone to use for a podcast. So how can I make this an active action step, an active part of my action plan? You could say something like, I am going to determine what microphone I'm going to use for my podcast because it's an important part of putting together my podcast studio. And I'm going to do it on Saturday at 10 a.m. after breakfast this coming Saturday. I'm going to determine what microphone I'm going to use for my podcast because it's important for me to have a microphone for my podcast that does its job, right? That does what it's supposed to do. And I'm going to do it on Saturday, this coming Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning after breakfast. Okay, so you've got your what, the microphone. You also have your how. You're going to do research, but you're going to be actually purchasing you're going to be deciding. So you're actually going to be taking a step and doing something by, this could be going online. You can even clarify that. I'm going to go online and buy a microphone, or I'm going to go to an audio video shop, a specific one at a specific place, and I'm going to buy a microphone there. You have your why, because it's important for my podcast, and you have your when, Saturday, 10 o'clock after breakfast, right? Now, it's very clear if you complete this task or not. So that's what I'm talking about. And then you can check it off because you'll know you're done because you've got your microphone on order. It's on its way, right? That is an action-oriented step in an action plan. You can check it off. You know what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and when you're doing it. So think about that when you're putting your action plans together. And it's really easy to let these things slide, and then you end up wondering why you're not making progress, or you end up not being able to measure your progress, which can be equally, disappointing, right? Because you want to know if you are making progress towards something. And this could be anything, right? It could be exercise goals. It could be, any, fitness goals, diet goals, whatever you're working on. Make sure that you are very clear in what you are going to accomplish. So trying to lose weight is not an action plan, right? That is not an action plan. Researching on how to lose weight is not an action plan. An action plan related to losing weight would include things like, I am going to meet with my nutritionist on Saturday because it's important to me to understand how to lose weight because I'm concerned about my health. I'm going to meet with my nutritionist Saturday, 11 a.m., and I'm going to get a list of things that I can start doing that will help me lose weight. That is an active step in an action plan. So be very clear about these things, and you'll start to see significant progress. And that's how you take an action plan and you really make it a plan that can deliver results for you. Because really, without those details, without the what, why, when, and how, you are not going to give yourself a clear path towards completing that action plan. So be specific, make sure you include those. And I included why in that step because it's very important. I think in terms of motivation and making sure that you understand the bigger picture, it can really help to always include why in an action step. So if you have an action plan and you know what you're trying to accomplish and it's very meaningful to you, you need to make sure that everything you do resonates with that. You need to remind yourself of that. That's going to make it not only clearer to you as to why you're doing it, but it's going to make it easier for you to stay motivated and to keep pushing yourself forward. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. The difference between active and passive action plans. It's very important, and it's something that you will notice a night and day shift if you really start to approach your action plans using these active words and this active mindset and clearly defining the what, the why, the when, and the how. You will start to see results. You'll be able to check off those results, and you'll be able to continue making progress towards your goals. So that's my challenge for everybody. Get out there, and when you start making an action plan for something that's important to you, take this approach. Make sure you're making those steps active and not passive, not wishy-washy, clear, powerful, concise. Use that vocabulary, and you will see results that are clear, powerful, and measurable. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, and I look forward to spending time with you again on an episode in the near future.